Nick, what is Angelmaker about?
Well, it's two stories really, then they collide. On the one hand, you have the sort of central character, Joe, who's a clockworker, and he accidentally switches on a 1950s doomsday machine, which looks like and is made of clockwork. And inevitably that puts him into rather more hot water than he was hoping. And then there's Edie Bannister, who's a retired super spy. And she's looking to make amends for some things that have gone wrong in her life. And when those two timelines collide and get wrapped up in each other and so on, you have a very spectacular mess. And suddenly poor Joe is dealing with terrifying characters from Edie's past, super villains and all the rest. And it's I mean, obviously it's got a kind of slightly modesty blazed James Bond feel about some of it, and then a sort of more gangstery, noiry feel about some of it. It's an adventure.
And why is it called Angelmaker?
That's the name of the machine, and nobody quite knows until the very end why it's called Angelmaker, and the conclusions that people draw about that sort of reflect their fears about what it might be. Obviously, the simplest interpretation, if you watch sort of Saturday morning cartoons, the easiest way of making angels is to knock someone on the head, and they go up to heaven with a harp. But there's more to it than that.
Nick, tell us about the two main characters, Joe Spork, son of the infamous criminal who just wants a quiet life, and then we have Edie Bannister, a former super spy who lives quietly and wishes she didn't.
Yeah, let's start with Edie. Everybody falls a little bit in love with Edie. She's sort of 89, 90 at the beginning of the book, and then we go back and visit her youth, and she's served faithfully her whole life, and she's suddenly beginning to realise that the things that she thought she was serving might not be there after all. So she's very cross, and she's been in my mind forever as a character. This magnificently bawdy, angry old lady with heavy firearms and in one of those enormous old lady purses. So that's Edie. And as you say, she just really, really doesn't want to live quietly. She wants to fix all the things that went wrong. And then you've got Joe, and he is so desperate not to have a heroic encounter in his life. He just wants to get by. And at the same time, he's got this creeping problem. He's got this worry that he's watching his life go by from the outside. Like, you know, that thing of being on your own, looking in on your own life, and sort of not participating. So he's sort of frantically treading water. Really the story is the story of their two timelines kind of crossing, and as you might imagine, rather explosively.
And so much goes on. It's actually quite farcical, really and truly. The Sunday Times said, what kind of a mind dreams up Angelmaker? It could only be Nick Harkaway. Bonkers, brilliant, hilarious, clever, and entirely fantastic. So I do have to ask you, Nick, what kind of mind do you have?
I think I've got a very, very relaxed mind. This is interesting, though, because it's the trick about being a novelist is that you get... It's like being a stand-up comic, but you get 18 months to be funny. It's really great. So, you know, I sat down to write Angelmaker, and I had a sort of a skeleton of an idea and, a few notions about where Joe would go and what would happen to him and where Edie was coming from and so on. And then, over the course of 18 months, you know, you're weaving through more and more and more incidents, and everyone says, gosh, how complicated, how did you come up with all this? And of course you didn't. You couldn't possibly hold all that in your mind at once. So although it does sort of look complicated, actually it's quite simple. You know, there's a bad thing happens, you have to work out what that bad thing is, and then you have to solve the problem. It's actually like a crime novel, crime investigation solution, but because it's all woven and interwoven, it feels as if it's frightfully complicated and clever, but actually I'm really pleased because I think it's quite accessible and sort of friendly and so on.
And with so much going on in the novel, what actually inspired you to write it?
I was looking for a story. I'd finished Gone Away World, and to my delight, that had been a success. And I wanted a new story. And I was sitting in a cafe, and I saw a kid with a broken clockwork wind-up toy, this weird little piece of coat hanger with springs, which was sort of skittering across the tabletop. And it was just hypnotic. And for some reason, I think because when you've got children, I've got a child now, so I know this, when you've got children and the toy is broken, you feel this urge to kind of get rid of it. It's somehow, you know, broken toys are very sad. But on this occasion the kid was okay with it, so I would hang on to it, but they left it behind on the tabletop, and I asked the waiter if I could have it, and he looked at me as if I was mad and said yes, of course, otherwise I've got to throw it away. And so I had this kind of clockwork, the idea of a clockwork thing that improved the world, and that was where it began. And then everything else got knitted in on top: Joe the gangster, or the not gangster, and Edie the spy.
So is that the message, really, about the improvements of the world?
Oh, messages! If you want to send a message, use the postal service. There are lots of. I mean, I'm a person who lives in this country. I have political perceptions, and they go into the book because, you know, you can't really avoid it. It's always, writing a novel is always a slice of your own identity. But there's no real kind of message in the book, except sort of be nice to each other, which is either the most profound or the most banal piece of advice you can ever give the world. And I believe it's been said before. So, I mean, yes, the machine to make the world better, I mean, consider what goes with that. If we need to be made better, there's a problem.
We need to hang out with Edie, it seems.
Everybody needs to hang out with Edie. I get more email about Edie and saying kind of, you know, when's Edie coming back, and, you know, can you tell me, you know, is it all going to be okay, and so on. It's yeah, Edie seems to have caught a wave.
Absolutely, a great character. I just think about this 90-year-old with this big machine gun, ready for action.
She is ready to go, yeah. And she's got views as well, with a capital V. She's got very strong opinions.
And this is your second novel, so
yes.
Was it more difficult to write than the first?
Oh, people always talk about that difficult second novel, don't they? When you tackle writing a novel for the second time, you know that it's difficult. And, you know, if you've been lucky the first time around as well, you've got this kind of weight of expectation. You know, you did something good, and now people are going to come on, you know, you've got to do it again. But it's not actually more difficult. It's just that you're more self-conscious. When I look at Gone Away World now, I look at it and I go, what did I think I was doing tackling that? I mean, that's an insane plot, you know. And people say that Angelmaker's complex. Gone Away World looks to the outside, because I've forgotten how it was writing Gone Away World, and I should know that it wasn't actually that complex, but, you know. So is it more difficult? No. And I've been talking to some other writers about this, and people who've been around for a while, and they all say to me, oh, no, you know, the one you really want to watch out for is number 17 or number 22 or whatever book it is that they're now writing. You know, oh, that's the difficult one. It's always hard. It's just that I think the second time round you get self-conscious and you notice how hard it is.
You know, you mentioned the digital world, and there's obviously competition, not just with other publications as well. And I know that you're the go-to voice when it comes to the debate about digital publishing. What are your views on that?
Well, oh God, there are many. I mean, I think, sort of simply put, I think it's time. The ebook world has happened now. There was in 2009 when I first started talking about this, everyone was going, "Oh well, it'll never be more than 1% of the market, you know, or maybe 3%." And now I think for a lot of people it's 25, and it's, you know, it's gradually going to climb. You know, so it's time to kind of get on the road and really do it. And it's not too late. That's the other thing. A lot of people say, oh no, it's too late now, we'll just have to take the status quo. No, you can always change something with a better product. And so I think I want to see the publishing industry sort of innovating and branching out and doing brave things. And it's very hard to persuade large companies to be brave, you know, but we're in the position at the moment a little bit where we're like a guy chasing a bloke on a motorbike, and he very kindly stops every couple of 100 yards to let us catch up, but he's never going to let us win the race. And we've got to buy a bike. That's what it comes down simply. To. Got to get a bike of your own. Yeah. So, you know, but broadly speaking, I think digitisation is so positive and so wonderful. It's such a good thing. You can't kind of entrench and try to fight it. You've got to go with the flow.
Yeah. And you also mentioned writing another book. Can you go into details?
Details, no, but I can tell you a little bit. Yeah. So it's set on an island.
More madness?
More madness, yeah. Although it's less mad. A little bit less mad. There's an argument going on right now. My wife says it's not notably less mad. I think it's less mad. But yeah, it's set on an island, and the main character is the last British presence on the island. And the island's going to be destroyed for various reasons. It's going to be totally destroyed because it's been deemed to be dangerous. And because of that, the sort of protection of law and sovereignty has been removed from this place, and everyone's gradually being evacuated. But in the meantime, it's become Casablanca. It's become this kind of Wild West place. And he's trying to reassure people and sort of keep some semblance of law and order going on. And it's not working out terribly well for him. But he forms a friendship with a local kid who persuades him that the way to do this is to put on a sort of Superman suit, as it were, and do it that way. And as you can imagine, that has many curious consequences, some of them hilarious, others rather bleaker. That's a rough and ready précis. I haven't written the blurb for the book yet. I've got, you know, that terrible piece of 2-paragraph prose on the back which never really resembles the actual text. I've got to write that, and I've not done it yet.
Look forward to getting that book. Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you.